Hi, my name is Jeremy. I'm an OCaml developer and I'm doing this video tutorial to talk about JBuilder. JBuilder is a build system for OCaml and Reason, and what I would like to show you today is how we can specify a project so that it can be built and tested using JBuilder. So I will show all the basics. We will see how to set up a JBuilder environment, how to build libraries, binaries, how to do code generation, and how to run tests using JBuilder. One part that I will leave out this video is the whole packaging story. Typically, this is what would allow you to distribute your project through a package manager. This part will be left to another video. So first of all, let's have a look at the project we are going to be using for this tutorial. So here are the sources. We can see that we have three directories, bin, src, and test. In the src directory, we have the sources for a small math library. In particular, we have a gen subdirectory which contains a code generator. Later on, we will use it to generate the src prime100.ml file. For now, I have included this file in my sources. Then we have the bin directory, which contains a small command line tool. And finally, we have the test directory, which contains unit test for our library. So let's get started. The first step is to set up what we call the workspace. So like with any build system, JBuilder splits the file system into two sections. We have a first section, where we have our source file, and we'll call that the workspace. Then we have everything else, where typically we can find pre-built binaries, such as your compiler, pre-built libraries, such as the one you would have installed through a package manager, and other data files. The way to delimit these two parts with JBuilder is to create a jbuild-workspace file. This file delimits the root of the workspace. So typically you will have one workspace per project. However, with JBuilder it is very common to create bigger workspace composed of several projects. And we do that for two reasons. First of all, it builds much faster. And the second reason is that when you work on several related projects, it is much more convenient to see them all as one big project. So when JBuilder starts, if the root of the workspace is not the current directory, it will tell you what is the root of the workspace. So for instance, if I go in the src subdirectory and I type JBuilder build, it's telling me entering directory followed by the root of the workspace. So since we can compose workspaces when there are several choices, JBuilder will always choose the biggest workspace. For instance, if I go in the src subdirectory and create another jbuild-workspace file, JBuilder will still pick up the same workspace. So I'm going to delete this second file, and we are going to move on to the second part of this tutorial, which is describing the project. And we'll start with the library. So let's have a look at the sources of the library. We can see that we have several files, but in fact, I want the math module to be the public API of my library. Every other modules are internal modules. So we can see in math.mli the public API of my library. We have a few functions with documentation. And the implementation simply import the function from the other internal modules. So let's see now how we can describe all this to JBuilder. So the way we tell anything to JBuilder is by writing JBuild files. When JBuilder starts, it will scan the workspace to find all these JBuild files and it will read them. So let's have a closer look at them. So JBuild files are written in S-expression syntax. So in case you don't know S-expressions, I will start by doing a small parenthesis about it. S-expressions are very simple. Everything is either an atom or a list. Atoms are simply arbitrary strings, and when they are simple, you can simply write the characters that form this atom. For instance, hello. If you want to put spaces or other special characters, you will have to put double quotes around the atom. Like this. You can also write lists, simply by writing the elements separated by spaces between parentheses. You can of course nest your list, and essentially S-expressions allows you to represent arbitrary data trees. Finally, if you want to write a comment, simply put a semicolon at the beginning of the line. So now let's look at what information we write in this file. So typically JBuild files are composed of stanza. One stanza you will have in every JBuild file is JBuild version, and it gives us the version of the specification we are using in this file. If in the future we decide to make some breaking change to the language, we will increase this number. Then what follows is a list of stanzas that describe what we have in the directory where the JBuild is. So typically in this directory we want to describe a library, so we are going to write a library stanza. What we will put inside this stanza is a list of fields to describe the library. So we will start with a name, which essentially gives us how the library has to be used. So typically in ML code that is using this library, we will have to write math.something. Then we are going to write a one-liner description with a synopsis field. And this description is what we'll get when we ask for what libraries are installed on the system. So that's all we need to do. Now we can ask JBuilder to build the library. So simply building the library is not very interesting because there is not much you can do with just a built library. However, one thing we do very often in OCaml is test our code in the interactive top level. So doing that with JBuilder is very easy. All we have to do is type JBuilder utop. So it is called utop because it is using the utop software, which is a better top level for OCaml. So to use it, you will have to install utop first. If you are using OPAM, typically you will have to do OPAM install utop. And once this is done, you can type JBuilder utop like this. And you can see that JBuilder is starting by building a few things. Typically it is building the library. And it finishes by building this utop.exe, which is a special top level with our library pre-linked in. And now we are inside the top level, and we can call the function of our library. For instance, math.fact5, and I get 120. Okay, so one last thing about libraries. What happens when we don't write explicitly this public interface module, when we don't have a module like math that matches the name of the library? So let's try it. Let's delete these two files. Well, what will happen is that JBuilder will create this top-level module for us, and it will contain all the modules in our library. For instance, if I do JBuilder utop again, now I have math.fact.fact, but I no longer have math.fact. Okay, so I'm going to restore these two files, and that's all for libraries. Now we are going to move on to the next part, which is the command line tool, and we are going to see how to build an executable. So because the command line tool is in the bin directory, we have to create a JBuild file in the bin directory to describe it. So let's have a look. So we start again with the JBuild version stanza. And now we are writing an executable stanza. We have a name field, which points to the module that contains the entry point of our program. If we had several programs in the same directory, we would have an executables stanza with a names field that would list all the programs. We would list only the entry points of our programs, not all the modules in the directory. Then, because we are using libraries for this executable, we have to tell it to JBuilder, and we do that with a libraries field. So here we can see that we have the math library we just defined, and the CMDLiner library. CMDLiner is a small library that allows us to easily write command line interfaces for OCaml programs. It is not part of the workspace, so what JBuilder will do is that it will look it up in the install world. However, if I was to download the sources of CMDLiner, extract them in my workspace, JBuilder will start using them immediately, assuming they contain a JBuild file. Okay, so that's all we need to do, and now we can ask JBuilder to build our executable. So with JBuilder, native binaries have the extension .exe. So we do JBuilder build bin CLI.exe. So JBuilder will never put the artifacts in the source tree. It will always put them in a separate build directory. This is simply to keep your source tree clean. So if you look in bin, we don't have the executable. So we could look for it in the build directory. However, there is a simpler way. We can do JBuilder exec, which will do that for us, as follows. So JBuilder exec bin CLI.exe fact5, and we get 120. So that's all for the binary. Now that we know how to define executables, we are going to look at code generation. So what I mean by code generation is asking JBuilder to build an executable and then run this executable to produce more code. So the first thing we need to do is tell JBuilder about the executable. So the code generator is in srcgen, so we have to create a JBuild file in srcgen. So first of all, I will delete the file I want to generate, just to show you that the build is failing, like this. So as expected, it's failing. So let's have a look at srcgen JBuild. So here, no surprises, we just define an executable as before. And now we need to tell JBuilder that to generate the primes100.ml file, it needs to run this executable. And we do that by adding a custom build rule to the system. So because the file we want to generate is in the src directory, we have to add this rule to the src directory. And the way we do that is by writing a rule stanza, as follows. So you can see that this rule stanza contains a small DSL. This small DSL describes an action that JBuilder will have to run. We are using a DSL rather than a shell / bash because we want a native experience on all platforms, and this DSL is interpreted natively on all platforms, including Windows. So you have a few constructions you can use. Here I have used the run construction, which allows me to run an executable, possibly with some command line arguments, and the with stood-out2 construction, which allows you to dump the output of an action to a file. So you'll notice here that I haven't told JBuilder what are the dependencies and targets of my rule, and this is simply because they are obvious by just looking at the DSL. If they were not, you would have to use a long form of the rule stanza, which has 3 fields: action, depth, and targets. So now that this is done, we can ask JBuilder to build again, and this is working. And you can see in the middle of the output that we have this line gen_prime100. This is because JBuilder has run our code generator. So in the output of JBuilder you have 2 columns. On the left you have a green column that tells you what JBuilder is running, so what program JBuilder is running. And on the right, in white, you have the targets that are being produced by this program. That's all for code generation. Now we are going to move to the last part of this tutorial, the test. So my tests are written as a small program that does top-level assertion. So there are 2 things I want to do. First of all, I want to tell JBuilder about this executable. So it's the same thing as before. We write an executable stanza in the test JBuild, like this. And the second thing is to tell JBuilder that we want to run this executable when we run the test suite. So there is nothing specific to test in JBuilder. However, we have a standard run test alias. So what are aliases? Well, aliases are simply virtual names that represent set of targets and action to run. Aliases are per directory, so in particular the run test alias in the test directory is not the same as the run test alias in the src directory. The way we define an alias in a directory is by writing an alias stanza. As follows, so we start with the name of the alias, run test, and we add the action, run our test. So if you wanted to add files to the alias as well, we would write depth on the list of files. And you can have as many alias stanza as you want per directory, they will just augment the alias every time. So now that this is done, we can ask JBuilder to build this run test alias in order to run our test. The way we do that from the command line is by prefixing the name of the alias by an @ For instance, JBuilder build @runtest. So we'll notice that I'll just say @runtest. I don't say test run test, simply because when you ask for an alias on the command line, JBuilder will build the alias recursively, like this. So because this is a very common operation, we very often run test, there is a quicker way to do it from the command line. You can just do JBuilder run test, which is exactly the same thing as build @runtest. So you'll notice that JBuilder didn't do anything this time. It's because it only rerun the action associated to an alias when dependencies have changed. This way, when you have lots of tests in your workspace, we'll only rerun either tests that have changed or that have failed before. So just to show you that it's working, I'm going to make the test fail. And now I do JBuilder and test again, and it's failing as expected. So that's all for test, and that's all for this video. We have seen how to describe a project in terms of libraries, executable, custom code generator, and test. We have also seen how to set up JBuilder workspaces. There are a lot of other features in JBuilder. You can find more in the manual, but I hope that this video will help you get started using JBuilder in your own project. Thanks for watching.